Here in Las Vegas, the Aces defeat the Lynx, and this is a really interesting MVP conversation. Maybe one of the closest we've seen in WNBA history. Let's talk about it. And welcome in, ladies and gentlemen. It is No Cap Space WBB. Andrew Haubner, happy to be with you and happy you are here with us here in T-Mobile Arena, where the Las Vegas Aces defeat the Minnesota Lynx in convincing fashion, 97-87 on the back of A'ja Wilson's 31 points and 7 rebounds. We got some quick takeaways here before I get on a plane and head back to good old Denver, Colorado. And if you want to see any post-game coverage from the press conferences, Becky Hammond talked with us, as well as A'ja Wilson and Chelsea Gray. Those are here on YouTube as well, here on our channel. Be sure to like, share, subscribe if you want a deep dive into everything that I saw on press row this evening. That's on NoCapSpaceWBB.com. Consider joining the Ball Knowers subscription tier, and you get access to the post-game notebooks and everything else that we see when we are here on the ground, because that is what your subscription funds, is our ability to be here on the ground. And here on the ground in Vegas, A'ja Wilson, guys, very well may have just taken the lead in the WNBA MVP race. I talked to Cheryl Reeve earlier today, and I asked her about this concept of this matchup potentially being a referendum on the MVP race. And a big reason I asked her that before the game started was because it's really hard to not look at the two top teams in the league, the two top players in the league, the two players that are in the mix for MVP more than anybody else. You could argue Alyssa Thomas is in third, but I think she might be a little bit further from these two after tonight. And it's not that one game ends your ability to contend in an MVP race. However, data points matter. And to me, this game, Dejanay Carrington being the only injury on either side, really. Cheyenne Parker-Tyus is still coming back from maternity leave. But for the most part, this is the healthiest both teams have been this year. Both stars, A'ja Wilson and Napheesa Collier, both playing in this game. And A'ja outplayed her, you know. And I know people that aren't Aces fans, people that aren't A'ja fans, you know, will say that she gets the superstar whistle. And I don't think that is a off base, you know, belief or interpretation. There were a couple calls tonight where I was like, that's a home cooking call, but you're in T-Mobile Arena in Vegas. You're supposed to get some type of home cooking calls. And frankly, superstar calls are superstar calls. Like, when you get to this level and you win multiple MVPs, you get calls like this. And so while, you know, a couple plays here and there certainly can help A'ja Wilson, you know, pad that line from, you know, maybe 24 or 25 to 30 or 31. Guys, she went 12 to 15 from the field today. Like 12 to 15 from the field, 8 rebounds to go along with that, a couple blocks, including one on Phee that went into the stands right by press row. She showed why she's the best player in the WNBA tonight. And this race becomes really close, closer than it has been at any point. I think if you were to go gun to my head up until this evening, I probably would say like it would have been 51 or 52 to 48 or 49, leaning Phee, just because of the body of work over the course of this year. But I have a really hard time trying to justify keeping A'ja on the shelf in second when you've won 13 straight and you are lined up to be a second seed. And after this game, frankly, I mean, granted, it's in a home environment. It's in T-Mobile Arena, which is not Michelob Ultra Arena. It is not where the Aces usually or typically play. It is a bigger venue. They do this a couple times a year, and they brought out a good crowd tonight. But the multitude of MVP chants, I mean, it was obvious. Like, they know who they want. And I asked Becky Hammond kind of a similar question that I asked Cheryl Reeve in pregame today. And I said, you know, what does it say about, you know, both of these players, that this is a heralded matchup where we're not talking about like meta shit in the sport. And she was like, look, people get fatigued by greatness, but like these are the two best players in the league. And this is a really fun matchup to watch because of it. And I think that for me is the really cool thing about what tonight was. This was very much like a celebration of WNBA basketball. This was a great game. The first quarter, I mean, it was like a banger starting out. Both these teams were shooting 50% from the field all the way into the third, and it stayed pretty tight until really the start of the fourth. The Aces won a couple of non-A'ja minutes, and it kind of turned into a burial from there. Cheryl Reeve more or less waved the white flag with about 2 to 3 minutes left. Anastasia Kosu, the Russian rookie, Jalen Sherrod, the Colorado guard, they all ended up getting into the lineup. A'ja came in with a couple minutes left for Vegas just to, kind of get over that 30 mark, which she did. She ended up with 31-8, as I mentioned. And Napheesa Collier this evening, quiet by her standards. 12 points, 6 rebounds, 3 assists, 5 of 13 shooting, minus 13 on the floor. And, some of that is on her, some of that's not. Minnesota fell into foul trouble early here. Alana Smith got hit with 2 fouls pretty early into either late first quarter or early second quarter. And when you can't keep land on the floor, that makes a huge difference for how you're able to defend, and especially defending the bigs here. That is a downright impossible task because you need to commit 2 or 3 different people to A'ja Wilson and Nekias Duncan from the Dunker Spot. Great podcast, great mind for basketball if you want to learn about the scheme and the X's and O's. Asked a couple of really cogent questions in the post game about operating with A'ja Wilson in the midcourt a little bit more, trying to get her out towards the free throw line and really allow her to find a little bit more space to move and maneuver. And, some of that I think is NaLyssa Smith's ability to space the floor and be just enough of an offensive threat that you have to respect her. That was the thing with Kia Stokes being in the starting lineup and why it was so hard for A'ja Wilson is that when a person isn't an offensive threat inside 3 feet, you really don't have to respect them. NaLyssa Smith, for whatever anybody wants to think about her as a player, she can hit an 18-foot jumper, and that means you have to defend her. And that allows A'ja to come out into that free throw area, into that middle of the floor, and operate with a little bit more use and space. And, Becky said that was really because teams started trying to throw zone at him, and it would help break zone. But the thing that is different about this Aces team, to me, is how much off-ball movement there is on offense. And I would recommend everybody go and listen to the Becky Hammon post-game presser that you'll find on our channel here in just a second, because she talks about this really interesting difference between like plays and sets, and like what a basketball play is versus a basketball set, and how this team is playing basketball. It is not formulaic. It's not fundamentally driven. It's a lot of like intrinsic, you pick it up in the mind because you're just out there playing ball. It's like the way JJ Redick used to like talks about the flow state, right? Like athletes where, you can just more or less shut your brain off and play because that's what you know how to do. And it feels like the Aces are kind of there right now. I talked to Chelsea Gray before the game for another feature that I'm working on over on our Substack. And one thing she said was she was like, I needed to pass the ball better. Like I needed to get my assists up. That's what I do. And that isn't what I was doing earlier in the year. And, that was part of her self-scout. And what I think is really good is, the Jewell Loyd bench move was huge in that it gave Jewell ownership over a second line. But I also think the thing that really helped there is Kirsten Bell and NaLyssa, because those are 2 players that know the role. And if the role is get offensive boards and cut off ball, that's what they're going to do because they know that they don't have to be great. They don't have to put up 20 points a game because you have Jackie Young and Chelsea Gray and A'ja Wilson that can do that. And so those 2 really understanding what their roles are on the floor. A'ja seemingly having the feeling that she doesn't have to do it all by herself anymore. That's huge. I mean, Jackie has always been consistent. I don't think much has actually changed for her. I think everything around her is better at this point. Chelsea Gray is turning back the clock on us. I mean, this is really cool shit from Chelsea Gray. For those that, are relatively new to the league, Go back and look up on YouTube Chelsea Gray, Seattle Storm WNBA playoff series. I think it was either 22 or 23. It was the first title season. Her performance in the WNBA conference semifinals against the Storm that year as a Brianna Stewart, Sue Bird-led Storm. Probably one of the single greatest series of WNBA players played. And anytime she kind of like pulls up that step back mid-range, that's all I ever think about is that series. And to me, it feels like she's really turned back the clock in becoming that kind of player again. And when you have that kind of player, the Aces are a championship contending team. It was interesting because in the pregame, Becky was in a mood, and not in like a bad mood, but like one of those kind of like swagger, like we're gonna put belt to ass moods that like coaches can sometimes have when they know it's, things are going right. And if you played or been around sports at this level, I mean, there's certain games where like people just know, people just know they're locked in. And to be honest with the Aces, I mean, they lost to this team by 53 points or something, 111 to 58 the last time they played. Obviously you want revenge, you're in a bigger building. As for Minnesota, this doesn't change anything, this doesn't destroy anything. I mean, Cheryl waving the white flag there was interesting in the context of like competition and rivalry, but I mean, it's the smart thing to do. You are not in any danger of losing the 1 seed. Sit your people. If you lose, you lose. Whatever. Who cares, right? Obviously, there's a symbolic nature to this loss, and there is momentum and just like human emotion that can come into it. Phee looked frustrated. I think she, probably could have had a bit more of a generous whistle. I think there was a lot of stuff going on under the hoop that when you're playing on the road like this, it's going to happen. But I think generally they probably could have used a little bit more from Kayla McBride tonight. She was 2 of 7 from 3. I will say, Napheesa Heidemann, man, if she's not making a push for 6-woman or most improved, she is on that list. 8 of 10 from the field, 2 of 3 from 3, 4 or 5 from the free throw line, 6 rebounds, 5 assists, 4 steals in 22 points. She was just excellent this evening. I do think this is a matchup where you do miss DiJonai Carrington a little bit. Like, I think having another defensive stopper, someone that can operate well around the perimeter, someone who, can recover quickly and has that twitchy first step, might not get lost. Like, those are the things where you need that player a little bit more. And I think you notice it because when you look at the minute distributions of this game, Vegas primarily went with 8. Kia Stokes played 2 minutes, but that, I'm not counting people that are playing under like 5 to 6. Minnesota played 7, Vegas played 8, and Vegas takes 3 guards off the bench in Jewel, Dana, and Aaliyah. And it was a big and a guard for Minnesota. Jessica Shepard played 13 minutes, which I thought was surprising considering Alana Smith's foul trouble early. And then Napheesa Heidemann played 28. So you probably could have used DiJonai in certain places here. And, while I don't think that the gap between these two teams is extensive in the way that it used to be, even a few weeks ago, I do think DiJonai is enough of a difference maker that maybe, this is a game that ends within 4 points instead of a game that ends, 10, because everybody kind of collectively took their foot off the gas for the final 2 minutes. I mean, if Becky wanted to run the score up, the Aces probably could have done that. So very impressed with Vegas tonight, man. I mean, this is what Vegas has been. This is what title Vegas looked like, and they look like title Vegas again. I asked Becky Hammon in the postgame if she feels gratified, if there's like a little bit of I told you so, because, we've critiqued her for the roster construction. The fan base has critiqued her. The fan base has demanded that she be fired. Like, it is not an easy job to have. And if you are Nikki McRae, who is leading, or Nikki Fargas, excuse me, Nikki McRae. I am so sorry. Nikki Fargas, who is, the president of the organization, or if you're Becky Hammon and, there is no GM right now, I mean, you probably have to feel pretty good about yourself for telling people to trust the process on this one. And, this feature that I have that's coming out on Kirsten Bell is going to be really good because it's going to give you a bit of an inside look at just sort of what the discussions have been this year, player to player, team to team. Chelsea Gray mentioned it to Michael Vogel in the post-game press conference saying, there were a lot of times this year where it would have been really easy to fold, but this is a strong-willed group, and all of them seem to understand that the place that they were at the start of this year is not the place that they are now. This 13-game win streak is the longest win streak in Aces history, and that's history that dates back to the San Antonio Silver Stars, and I believe they were Utah before that too. But this is a franchise that's been around for a long time in many iterations. So to be able to do this and do it at this time of year two is pretty vital. I mean, it's really massive. I want to touch on a couple other quick things before we go here. A couple scores from the evening. A big shout out to the Golden State Valkyries. 23-18, they've officially made the playoffs. The Dallas Wings had them on the ropes for a little bit, but I feel like the tank was kind of on in some way, shape, or form. Paige Beckers finishes with 27.6 assists, 4 steals. Janelle Salon for Golden State, 19.6 rebounds, and Veronica Burton with a huge shot late to help propel Golden State. Valhalla, man. Valhalla is getting a playoff series, and that is some pretty cool stuff. This is one of the feel-good stories of the year in sports at all. I mean, this is a team we did not expect this from them. We didn't expect it from Natalie Nakase. We did not expect it from any of these players. We thought this was going to be tank season, and here they are. 5 games over 500 and firmly in the playoff conversation. I would say the playoffs are more or less figured out now. I think that loss by LA last night really solidified some things, and it pretty much allowed Seattle, Indiana, and Golden State to solidify their hold. Now, the only question is what the orientation of those seeds are going to be. It feels like Vegas has very clearly taken a stranglehold on that second seed. And, again, gun to my head, if you got to make me vote, and I don't have a vote, but if you had to make me vote, A'ja Wilson's the MVP of the WNBA this year. I mean, I don't know, if unanimous was right last year. And people can be like, well, we're there. That's so out of left field. Where'd that come from? I say that because I think the fact that it was unanimous last year created this situation where we feel like there's like an Academy Awards Oscar component going on with the MVP right now. And it started with that, 2023 year when Stewie won and Alyssa Thomas basically took some of Asia's votes. There's that whole 4th place vote thing. But if you go back and look at the numbers, the 4th place vote wouldn't have put her over the top over Stewie. So it's kind of a moot point anyway. It's just people are caught up in the disrespect component, but it didn't actually cost A'ja anything. What cost A'ja was people voting for Alyssa Thomas, who finished second in the voting that year. But after that, it became this thing of like A'ja got gypped in 23. So now Asia's unanimous in 24. And now Phee's in, the front runner from jump in 25. And, we put out these narratives and I write about it in 5 Out. And, I'm just as culpable in the creation and the formation of the narratives as anybody else. But, frankly, that's what our job is. Our job is to talk about the game. At no point, however, have we at No Cap Space, I think, declared the MVP race over. I don't think we've done that at any point this season. At least I hope not. If we have, that's that's like a fuck up on our part. But I think the fact that A'ja even opened the conversation back up and, she won this head to head. And I know that, we were talking about it, myself, Nikias Duncan, and Callie Finn, fantastic reporter from the Las Vegas Review-Journal who covers the Aces. I'd recommend you follow them. Both fantastic sources of WNBA information and knowledge. We were kind of debating, how much do the head-to-heads matter? Nikias's point was that the, general head-to-heads kind of, they favor Phee a little bit more in the matchups themselves. Callie's point was context matters in all of those matchups, right? Because 2 of those matchups, one of them we didn't have A'ja, the other one we didn't have Phee, and then the one of the 4 that they did meet, I think, Phee got the better of her there. But to me, I'm a big narratives guy, and that can be a downfall when, you're trying to talk basketball stuff. But I think, part of this is an entertainment product on some level. And from an entertainment perspective, if you drop a table while you're trying to clean up a stadium, it makes a big sound. That's tough. No, the thing with this race is, I think this data point matters. Like late in the season, what is at stake here, and Phee knew it, A'ja knew it, it was very clear that both of them wanted it out the gate. It was just obvious that A'ja came out with killer tonight. Like dog, she wanted it, like bad. She wanted it bad. Elbow jumper after elbow jumper from the baseline, like going in and muscling for buckets, going to get rebound. Like she brought it, and when you are the superstar and everybody follows your lead, that's what happens. People want to follow you. People want to play for you and play with you. And that's what she proved tonight. That's not to say that Phee didn't, but I do think Phee was a little bit more passive than I would have liked her to be. But also, this isn't the playoffs quite yet. So, like, I can't necessarily knock the fact that Minnesota didn't play at their best. But from a narrative standpoint, man, I mean, I don't know how you don't come away with this thinking that the Aces are, a title contender or title favorite with Minnesota, if not overtaking them as the title favorite. So it creates more narratives. It creates more or less momentum. And that's what's fun about this whole thing. So this was a really great game. I am very glad to have been down here. We do not get to do these things and be able to give you this boots on the ground coverage without viewers like you powering No Cap Space on YouTube, on Substack, on socials. So I appreciate you all. Thank you so much for being on. And we got so much more coming up. Watch guides coming out Friday. No Cap cover on Saturday. All that on NoCapSpaceWBB.com. Check us out on Substack. Consider subscribing to the Ball Knowers tier. Like, share, and subscribe to us on YouTube. Follow us on TikTok, on Instagram, on Blue Sky, on X, on Facebook, wherever you get it. We got it. Threads, even. We're there. We're everywhere. Mr. and Mrs. Worldwide, nationwide. Shout outs to Pitbull. That's all the time we got here. Signing off from Las Vegas. It's your boy, Andrew Haubner, with No Cap Space, WBB. We will see you all very soon. And until then, keep watching the ball, because the ball is very good.